carried. So now we come to item 11. Someone in looking for a big bank transfer by the looks of things, 131.8 million, and this is to do with the Point Erin tunnel extension of the Central Interceptor. It's the final business case, and we have Craig McElroy here as per usual, and a couple of associates, Shane at least from Watercare, and this again is a pretty substantive project that has been in the making for some time and is now fast approaching the delivery stage. So over to you, Craig.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So as you say, I have with me Shane Kunis, Chief Program Delivery Officer for Watercare, and Chris Stumbles, who's Head of Design and Delivery for Healthy Waters and Flood Resilience. So we're here to talk to you about this project. We actually would have come to you a lot earlier with this project, but we couldn't do it till the LTP had landed because the monies that we are looking to allocate to this project were commensurate on the numbers being finalised through the LTP, which is why we're here today. So just a site map to remind everyone where we're at. So the bottom of the chart, the blue line, is where the current where the Central Interceptor was originally planned to terminate, and is it Tauraki Street in Greylin, and the proposal now is to extend the CI from Tauraki Street in Greylin to the Point Erin Reserve, and that's part one of the project. And then part two of the project is the yellow line, which is a new Herne Bay collector that will run from virtually the coastline to the left all the way through to Point Erin Park, and obviously we'll then be looking at the options when we do the yellow piece around the connectivity. There's a little bit of work to be done design-wise to finalise the connectivity that occurs within Point Erin Park between the blue bit and the yellow bit. Cutting to the chase, we had effectively 4 options, but option one's not an option because we've already made major commitments to the community through the Western Isthmus work that has been done in combination of Watercare and Healthy Waters to deliver a major investment project, and so that's just put up there as an option. But the real options are effectively either connecting the new 4.5 diameter tunnel and the Herne Bay sewer upgrade, which is our preferred option, or going with a smaller pipe with the Central Interceptor extension, or also then looking at combined sewer separation. And of the 2 options involving the extension of the Central Interceptor, the most cost-effective option is actually the option to run with a larger diameter tunnel, and the Healthy Waters share of that cost is 150.3 million of the total investment of 341.5, yet the separation, complete separation, would have cost 396, so roughly another 54 or 55 million dollars on top of the original budget. But the key thing about the combined sewer separation is that that would not only be a more expensive solution, the amount of traffic disruption that project would cause would be extraordinary, and it would make the CRL project look like a walk in the park, because we'd need to be digging up every road in Herne Bay, and as you know, a number of those roads are very narrow roads already, and so the amount of disruption, Jervois Road would have required to be dug up to do the work. And so we think what we have here is an option that not only is cheaper, but it also provides a lot more benefit to the community by minimising disruption, and it also is the most cost-effective way to achieve the water quality outcomes that we're looking to achieve. What I can say is that with the Central Interceptor, Watercare has already taken the opportunity to negotiate a contract extension with the existing contractor, and the pipe segments have already been purchased to take advantage of the cost of the pipe segments being manufactured while that operation was in place to support the Central Interceptor project. and just highlighted the reason why we don't think option 4, there's also some risk associated with option 4 as well, that we would need a new engineered overflow point at the pump station in Point Erin Park. And it's certainly a more risky option from a water quality point of view, because if you don't get combined sewer separation 100%, it's only when you get that last property 100% separated that you actually see the water quality benefit to the waterways. So at the end of the day, we have a situation where this proposed investment, it provides for resilience, it deals with a major capacity bottleneck, it achieves our 90% target for bathing beach compliance, less disruption, lower cost. It helps assist addressing Māori cultural values, including seafood gathering, good for recreational activities, and obviously it's going to benefit, the enhanced water quality is going to have a very positive benefit for tourism. So that's just an aerial view of what the works will look like when they're completed, and so you'll see 2 areas that have been highlighted in the circles. The one in the middle is the vent stack to allow air to be drawn in and out of the CI tunnel as it empties and fills, and the one towards the bottom of the graphic is a plant room which controls pressure in the control chamber and houses equipment to operate the control gates to the central interceptor. So you can see in terms of the final impact on the park, the infrastructural impacts are pretty minor in comparison to the massive benefit that this project provides. Yeah, I think the plan is to put a green roof onto that control room. Yep. And look, and I think it is relatively straightforward. And so with that, I think I'll just hand over for any questions. Kia ora.
All right, thanks, Craig. So we'll open up for questions. Councillor Walker.
So I've got a few questions. The first question is a question in principle. Is it better in principle to separate the stormwater and the sewage at source rather than the option of an ongoing combined system? So just an in principle question.
In terms of the cost-benefit analysis, I believe that in this particular situation, what we're proposing is getting best value for buck in terms of solving the water quality problem. We will still be able to do long-term sewer separation in the catchment as new development takes place. And so rather than do a big bang approach now, the intention would be to separate properties when the development opportunity arrives to afford that opportunity. So at the end of the day, it's all about coming up with the most cost-effective solution. And I think right now, if we want to avoid more road cones, I would suspect this project probably eliminates about 10,000 road cones, would be my rough estimate. So
my question wasn't about cost-benefit. It was rather about whether it's better to have a separated system. So, for example, in every greenfield area, we have separated systems because, in principle, that is the better methodology rather than combined systems.
Okay. Look, if you're starting from scratch, the answer is yes.
So,
because we've inherited a system that has been around since the 1960s,
right.
We have to look at the constraints that we go into this problem-solving exercise with. Because otherwise, you might question the whole rationale for the complete central interceptor around a model that could maybe include separating everywhere and then looking at a different wastewater solution for water care. But I think the solution that we've come up with is actually one that does provide the best. Because to be honest, as an engineer, the only way that I would ever look at a problem like this is in terms of a cost-benefit analysis.
So,
not a philosophical approach, which, by the way, was a view that was held by has been held previously by some people that we needed to, that it was the right thing to do regardless of cost, and it's one that certainly within my remit at Healthy Waters we've advocated strongly for this, a different solution that takes cost into account.
Got that. So my follow-up question is, in a situation where we put in more combined facility, will we still be addressing the ongoing problem of lack of separation? So we're not going to give up on separating, are we? We're going to continue to do that, as you mentioned, as development opportunities present themselves.
Correct.
But I'm assuming we'll also pick up on low-hanging fruit where that's possible.
Correct.
Okay, so the other question I've got goes to healthy water outcomes, and I'm looking at page 80 of the agenda. So one of the issues with the central interceptor and anything that's bolted onto it is the increasing amount of fresh water that's going into the Manukau, and from what I understand from people that understand the biota, the ecosystem of the Manukau, the displacement of saltwater organisms and the like that's occurring. And I also note that there may well be issues in terms of the consent that we've got because of the need to limit the amount of this water going into the Manukau. It doesn't appear to be commented on in your business case. Would you like to comment on that?
So the impact this is going to have on the influent coming into the Mangere treatment plant is very, very small in overall terms. Shane, can you recall the number that it's like a 3 or a 4% difference in the volume of stormwater that has been added through this, because it's obviously picking up the big stormwater events. But in overall terms, it doesn't really change the profile at Mangere, which already is very, very, I think when you actually analyse exactly what arises at the Mangere treatment plant in terms of wastewater versus stormwater, there's still a very significant stormwater component. You might want to talk to that, Shane.
Good afternoon all. One other key difference between the central interceptor and a lot of other combined sewer overflows that have been delivered around the world is that the central interceptor always has dry weather flow in it. So it is conveying sewerage to Mangere as part of its day-to-day role. Something like tideway only occurs when it rains. And so that's when you get a greater impact of just stormwater going down the conveyance system. But for us, this is primarily a wastewater pipe. And over time, as we take more stormwater out of it, we'll be adding more and more wastewater as that development occurs. So it's not just conveying fresh water down to the Manukau.
Sure. So just run that past me again. So the central interceptor is taking combined sewage, stormwater all the time, right? And then in addition to that, when there's a heavy rainfall event, it takes significantly more.
So when it's not raining, it's only taking wastewater.
Correct.
When it rains, you'll get the inflow of the stormwater as well. So it will dilute down the wastewater that's in the tunnel, but not to the extent that it's fundamentally changing the characteristics of the influent.
Okay. The other question I've got is around development contributions. Given that we fund part of these activities through development contributions, is that applying to this particular project? And the follow-on question is, are we still going to be able to capture development contributions for developments that are added, marginal developments, and will that development contribution cover off the cost of separation? So two related questions there that go to development contributions.
So the intention of any development contributions would be to pay the growth component as it relates to the investment. So if we're doing new separation work that has a growth component, that would be picked up through the developer contributions, but also there's the renewal component, which you also need to factor in, which will be funded out of out of the general rates take, bearing in mind that in this case, that's correct, because all of this would be applying after the term of the water quality targeted rate, which currently goes through to 2031.
And just a further question, Mr. Chair. So in respect of, the building consents and consents for developments that are occurring in the catchment that's benefiting from this Point Erin extension, is it correct to say that there's a requirement for separation across any of those developments?
So any development that's occurring within the combined area would be, my understanding is, would be required to separate to the boundary, and then what happens after the boundary would be dependent on what stage the separate stormwater was put into the street network, which would be a function of how we would prioritise the monies that we have available for separation works.
Okay. And the last question I've got just goes to the business case. You've got 150 million for this budget. If we were to alternatively, separate out properties over time more aggressively, what's the alternative cost for that?
Well, the full cost of separation is the cost that was identified in the options analysis, and so that's the comparator that we've used in order to make this business decision, because what we are required to do as part of this whole program of work is that there are 10, if you look at the Western Isthmus program as a total investment package, there are 10 overflow sites that are required to have a frequency of overflow between 2 and 6. All other overflow sites are required to have a frequency of 2 or less. And so all of these investment profiles are all designed to address how we achieve those overall water quality outcomes. Kia ora.
What is the cost of the alternative?
I'll just click back to the slide. So that's the option at $396 million on slide, compared to option 2 at 341.5 mil. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, no worries. Councillor Lee?
Thank you. I was in France last month, and my wife took a picture of me posing on one of the bridges across the Seine with the Eiffel Tower in the background. Of course, it posted it on Facebook with the other pictures, and you'd be surprised how many people came back and said, ho, 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 the River Seine, hope you didn't fall in. But when we hear that Auckland has 250 million litres of contaminated stormwater going into the harbour, we shouldn't really be sort of tut-tutting about the River Seine, given it's, miles inland, it's got a bigger population. Paris has got a bigger population than Auckland, so there's a lot of support for what you're trying to do. Just to take up Councillor Walker's question, there was a debate about the central interceptor, that the central interceptor, which is designed to go to the Mangere wastewater treatment plant, was for wastewater, and that stormwater needed to be separated out. And we had that debate literally in this room a few years ago between the then Chief Executive of Watercare and I think yourself, Craig. Anyway, the consensus seems to be we put it all in the central interceptor, and as long as it, there's capacity, and then we'll worry about that later on down the track. Okay, and the community has bought into that, but there is some concern in the community that and it's in the report, it's not explicit, the report is somewhat opaque, but there is, the community feels that the project or the time span of the project has been kicked off for completion in the 2030s, and there's no sign of that in the report, but except for a reference to water care being paid over 7 years, which certainly takes us into the 2030s, given the reality of how construction projects in Auckland, how long they last. So can you give us some clarity about what the timeline is? Because the community has also agreed for Salisbury Reserve to be handed over to water care for worthy industrial purposes for 2 years. So where is this 2030 stuff coming from, if I may ask? Thank you.
Great questions. I'm aware of that there is some noise in the community about this date. I have recently assumed the mantle of program delivery, and one of the tasks I've given to my team is around the delivery and optimisation of delivery of projects, because we can take as long as we want to deliver a project. It's neither efficient nor effective. And I've been telling people, don't worry about the start date, worry about the end date. So this is the scenario as it sits at the moment. The central interceptor extension to Point Erin is we've established at Point Erin, that will be completed in 2026. One of the reasons that we're doing that piece of work right now is so that we can commission the entire central interceptor and get those benefits that we've been promising to the people of Auckland for the last 10 to 15 years. That is addressing all the major overflows at Mount Albert, Grey Lynn, down to May Road. And it's likely to be in 2025. There is still some confirmation of the exact details of how we connect Herne Bay Collector, St Mary's Bay Stormwater, and that southwest corner to bring that into the central interceptor. But we don't want to do that work that would influence the completion of central interceptor. So we need to finish that. And then we'll start on Herne Bay Collector. And I'm aware that there's this concept of 2A and 2B, and some people before me had some very interesting ideas about how to deliver this. They've now been pushed to one side. And what we're doing is optimising that delivery program. It will be a single package of works to deliver the Herne Bay collectors. And it will be, the goal is to finish it in 2028. And it is separate to the funding issue, which is effectively, as Craig said, that's a council mechanism of how they will provide that funding to Watercare. Watercare needs assurance that we will get that funding, because if we don't, we're exposed to the remainder of the costs. So hopefully that gets approved, that's good, we'll do the agreement. But our goal and my group's goal is to deliver this in the most efficient time. I'm aware of we've only got 2 years for Salisbury Reserve, so why would I take longer than 2 years? So my goal is to get CI finished, and then when we start Herne Bay, we go, and we do it within that 2 year period. So I'm optimistic that we will in 2028 be complete all works in that neighbourhood.
I just think that there needs to be some clarity around the length of time and the divvying up of the project into two tranches, one that seems to be reasonably planned to be expeditiously completed, but the other one has a hint of 7 years hanging over it, which I can tell you is going to cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's not going to be that long.
Thanks, Shane. Right, any other questions? Councillor Walker?
Sorry about this. This is a major project, Mr. Chair. So how is the relative share of Healthy Waters and Watercare arrived at? I'm just trying to find the analysis around that.
So when we were looking at option 4 to do the combined sewer separation work, the Watercare's share of that was 56% of the cost, and the Healthy Waters share was 44% of the cost. So when we came up with a different solution, being option 2, it was felt by both parties that the benefit should be shared equally on the basis of the cost of the original project that it's replacing. So that's how we got to the 56% Watercare, 44% Healthy Water share, which translates to the 150.3, which, by the way, 18.5 million has already been paid as an advance to Watercare to cover the design and consenting costs. So that was paid last financial year. Correct.
Okay, all right, thanks. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Is there anyone, there's some good searching questions there. Is there anyone that wants to speak to the item? Okay, Did you want to ask a question or speak to it? Okay, so you can lead us off then, Councillor Turner.
So just as the water care lead councillor, this has been worked through and it all sounded pretty good at the water care end. They had it sorted out and it was all decided by them. All the questions were asked there too and answered in the same manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. You can depart back then, Craig and co, if you want. And Councillor Walker, you want to finish us off?
So I'll just raise my general concern around the need to aggressively try and separate. And I'd really like to see an active plan around that goes to development contributions, goes to the consenting, both building consent and resource consenting process. Because that is what we should be doing, Mr. Chair. And it's disappointing that hasn't happened enough to date, because across this catchment, there has over time been significant upgrades of homes. Many of these homes have been upgraded, and these include the old heritage homes. So we've collected consenting fees, we've collected contributions and the like. We should have done a lot more. And I have an ongoing concern that through the Central Interceptor and other things, we're discharging a phenomenal amount of fresh water into the Manukau, and I know that habitat is actively changing, and that is affecting Kaimoana, amongst other things, and the whole ecosystem is changing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Lee, would you like to move this item? It's in your ward. Oh,
Happy to,
okay. Moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor Turner. All that? Aye. Against?
I'm abstaining, Mr. Chair. I'm abstaining.
Okay, thanks for that.